Do you like to use bad weapons? Are you the sort of individual who likes to challenge themselves? Do you have a friend who insists that having high DPS on a weapon is the only thing that matters in a video game and needs something to prove them wrong? If you said yes to any of my inquiries, I have the guide for you. How yin's doing? I'm Ian, and this is my TF2 How to Killstreak series, where we look at the best and worst TF2 has to offer and I show you how to get a killstreak with it, because everything is a bad idea until it works. Today, as you could tell by reading the title and thumbnail of this video, we'll be covering the warrior spirit. So without further ado, let's get into it.
I would forget you?
This melee weapon was added back in 2010 in the Australian Christmas update as part of the Hibernating Bear item set, alongside the Brass Beast and Stake. And for those of you who are wondering, no, they do not synergize together whatsoever. In fact, the only thing these weapons have in common is the fact that they boost your raw damage at the expense of making you easier to kill. Presumably, the idea of this item set is that with the boosted damage you get from all these weapons, your lack of survivability wouldn't matter because you would be murdering people to death so hard. I've already covered the Brass Beast and Buffalo Steak Sandwich in previous videos, so check the description if you're interested in my comprehensive thoughts on them. As for the Warrior Spirit, if you're interested in acquiring this weapon for yourself, it can be crafted by combining a Guru with a scrap metal in the crafting menu, trading with other players, waiting for a random drop to give you this weapon, or if you want this weapon in strange quality, it can be acquired for literal pennies off the Steam Marketplace. So if you're short a strange weapon in order to trade up for something you want, this can be an excellent item to acquire with the literal pennies you have left over after a Steam sale. As for what this weapon does, it boosts your raw damage by 30% and gives you 50 HP on kill, meaning you can kill anything less than a fellow heavy with a random crit if we ignore health boosting weapons and ubercharge. This might sound fine and dandy until you realize two major problems. Firstly, it's a melee weapon in a game where everyone has a gun that can only be equipped by the class with the slowest movement speed in the entire game. The second, far more important issue you have to contend with is the fact that you take 30% more damage whenever you have this thing pulled out. To give you some perspective, being marked for death by, say, a Girardi or a scout hitting you with a Fan of War would cause you to take 35% more damage from all incoming sources. And these damage vulnerabilities can stack together, meaning if you get covered in Girardi, you are basically got the durability of a wet paper towel. As a result of all this, that 50 health you get on kill is more of a basic prerequisite not to die after killing someone with this weapon, rather than a selling point to equip it for. And I should know, since once upon a time, I decided to try to get 100 kills on a strange one of these things for a video back when I had absolutely no idea how to make good YouTube videos. So if the gameplay in the background of my video looks a bit different than what you're used to, that's because I'm just recycling gameplay footage from an older video. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to see that in its entirety for some reason. The biggest issue the Heavy's melee weapons have is the fact that your primary will always be your best option in terms of damage at all distances, including melee. In fact, the only reason you would want to use this weapon over your minigun at melee distance is if you either A, know you're going to get a guaranteed critical hit from, say, a Killstreak medic, or because you're using the Hulong heater and ran out of ammo. In my experience, when using the Warrior Spirit, you only have two realistic tactics to use when you're trying to get kills with this weapon directly. The first tactic that many of you have probably already thought of is to simply use the Buffalo Steak Sandwich to try to close the gap with the speed boost it provides and then rush someone down with the mini crit boost it also gives. The problem with this is that it has a hidden downside of giving you a 10% damage vulnerability that stacks with the 30% damage vulnerability of this weapon. Meaning, as a general rule of thumb, using this combination of weapons outside of the Brute Keep is a fancy way to commit suicide. However, I found a far more reliable tactic to get kills with this weapon: ambushing players using the Delocus Bar. You see, the Delocus Bar can be used to boost your maximum health by 50 points temporarily, which helps mitigate this weapon's biggest drawback, boosting the odds of you being able to close the gap and get that melee kill on someone. And trust me on this, you need every ounce of help you can get with this weapon, since you're trying to go for melee kills with the slowest class in the game, in a game where, let's review, everyone has a gun.
We have lots of guns and we will shoot you with all of them.
Every single one.
Still, if you can use the health boosting properties of the Delocus Bar alongside the element of surprise, the odds of you being able to get a multi-kill with this weapon rise from a pipe dream to unlikely, but plausible. However, if you are thinking to yourself that you'll just run around with the minigun like you would normally with the heavy and then switch to this weapon whenever a good opportunity arises, allow me to explain to you what's actually going to happen. You're gonna be running around with your minigun of choice out 24/7, only occasionally switching to your secondary to top off your health with your choice of sandwich, banana, or chocolate. Because let's be honest with ourselves here, I know TF2 can be a bit unrealistic with rocket jumping and stuff like that, but let's be real with ourselves here, shooting people with a minigun is a far more viable tactic for getting kills than punching people.
Heresy!
Because of this, you will pretty much never see this weapon being used outside of medieval mode, since even if a new player or someone trying to challenge themselves decides to equip this weapon outside of medieval mode, they're gonna die so quickly that you're not gonna see them in the first place. And even in medieval mode, this weapon is just utterly outclassed by the KGB, since what sounds more appealing to you? Being able to heal after every kill at the cost of taking 30% more damage from everything? Or guaranteed critical hits after every kill at the cost of punching slightly slower? And that's the big issue with the Warrior Spirit. It only does one thing almost well on a single map. Meanwhile, you still have a completely different weapon that competes for an equip slot on the same class, doing the same thing, but better on a wider variety of maps and game modes, whilst also being able to synergize with playstyles other than punching people in the face. If, however, you are hellbent on punching people in the face and need some help closing the gap, I do have one last bit of advice to give you. Learn to become a Judas Hoopy. The Judas Hoopy is a tactic where you pretend to be friendly in order to get behind the enemy team, then, when you see the perfect opportunity to strike, betray the trust you earned by handing people sandwiches for a glorious multi-kill. There are a few things that prevent this from becoming a reliable way to close the gap, however. The first and biggest issue is that some players will simply kill you on sight regardless if you're friendly. This might be because they're a new player who doesn't realize what a friendly is, a murder hobo hellbent on getting the highest possible KD ratio ever, a try-hard elitist who thinks that everyone should be playing the game exactly the same way as each other and finds the idea of anyone not trying to win the game in a typical match heresy, or a bot that will mindlessly kill anything that isn't also a bot on the server. With that said, all in all, I give the Warrior Spirit a challenge mode out of 10. If you're looking to challenge yourself in this game, this might be a weapon worth considering. Otherwise, you want to stay far, far away from this thing. That's all for now, though. Like the video if you did, subscribe if you don't want to miss the next one, comment what weapons you want to see me cover in the future. I've been Ian, you have been you, and this has been my TF2 How to Killstreak guide to the Warrior Spirit. And stay tuned, the Soda Popper is coming up next.